What's up, Mysterious Huntsman fans? This is Paul, and I am back with a great episode of the Mysterious Huntsman podcast. And yes, I say that every week. I just love it that much. But tonight, I really do have a very special guest, and I am honored and privileged to have on the show. And we will introduce him in just a second. But first, I have a word from a sponsor. Thank you for tuning in to the Mysterious Huntsman, a show where we encourage everyone to share their paranormal experiences with our online audience. But before we get started, I'd like to thank our sponsor, the Premier Group LLC and the product Hemp Paste, for helping to change the lives of so many. Now, you've no doubt heard of CBD oil. Well, CBD is just one cannabinoid out of 118 contained within the hemp plant. Hemp paste uses the whole plant containing all 118 cannabinoids and natural terpenes without the harmful extraction process, so you get the full benefit of the plant. Most CBD oils on the market today only contain about 2 to 3% CBD. That's it. Hemp paste contains at least 17 to almost 20% CBD, plus all of the other properties within the plant. People tell us that their PTSD, depression, anxiety, OCD, joint pain, spasms, and many other conditions have either greatly improved or completely gone away using hemp paste. If you would like more information on this amazing product, please email me at themysteriousHuntsman@gmail.com. You owe it to yourself to give a try. You'll be glad you did. Hemp paste is perfectly legal and meets all local, state, and federal laws. Now let's get into the show. Welcome back, guys. Tonight, my very special guest is U.S. Air Force retired Staff Sergeant Jim Penniston. And I know you recognize the name because he is directly involved with the Rendlesham Forest incident. He entered the Air Force in 1973 and served over 20 years active duty in the U.S. Air Force. He was assigned to the Strategic Air Command Elite Guard in Omaha, Nebraska, providing security for general officers, congressmen, foreign heads of states, and the president and members of his cabinet. Jim held key assignments throughout the world, including service in Desert Shield and Desert Storm. He wrote defense, security, counterterrorism, and contingency plans for the USAF and NATO. Additionally, he provided security support for Air Force One and other classified aircraft weapon systems. Penniston held for the majority of his 20-year career a U.S. top secret and a NATO top secret cosmic security clearance. Now, Sergeant Penniston and his team were first responders to a security investigation of a craft of unknown origin located just outside of RAF Woodbridge in December of 1980. That case is known as the Rendlesham Forest incident, and it is the most documented account in military history. So without further ado, let's welcome Jim to the Mysterious Huntsman Show. Hey Jim, this is Paul with the Mysterious Huntsman Show. Thank you so much for coming on. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing great as well. Thanks for asking. Just a little hot down here in Nashville. I think we bumped, at least 100 today.
Wow, that is warm.
Very warm. But like I said, without further ado, I was excited to be able to contact you. I didn't think I would actually have you on the show. I've followed your story for many years now, and it's an incredible account, and it is probably one of the most documented accounts in military history. And I know there's so much more in detail that goes with that, and even beyond that, as years have progressed and you've experienced some things that's kind of opened your eyes a little more to it. But man, I just, thank you again for coming on, and I'm just going to let you just tell me exactly how you got into this, and we'll just take it from there.
Okay, well, I think I'll just give you a little bit of information about the incident itself, to how, set it up. It was 1980, December, and it was located over in the United Kingdom. It was twin bases. They're RAF bases, but that's in name only. They were U.S. Air Force bases left over from the war, and we still used them. And the twin bases were separated by 3 miles of forest. The main operating base was RAF Bentwaters, That's where all the command and control centers were. And then Woodbridge, that had limited resources on that. We had a couple squadrons of A-10s there. Total amount of aircraft we had was 5 squadrons, and some were at Bentwaters. It was the height of Cold War. We had a mission that was in the event of war to deploy to 4 forward operating locations in Germany, and the A-10s that were there were supposed to go ahead and get rid of all the tanks, which they could have probably done. So that sets it up about where it's at. And it was just a regular work shift. I worked security for the base. My assignment that night was I was the flight sergeant for RAF Woodbridge. I was in charge of security for that base. And it was a normal start. I did our guard mount, which is, we get pass-ons and things like that, and codes and all kinds of neat things. And we had driven over to Woodbridge Base on the back road, and we had posted everybody, and I had started doing some of the things I usually do on a quiet night, things like perimeter lighting checks, stuff like that. And so I had completed those, and then the security response team leader, Sergeant McCauley, says, well, let's meet, at the chow hall, and we'll have an early breakfast. And it was about midnight. And I said, okay. So I met him there, and I was getting ready to, have my cup of coffee and all that stuff. And he says, did you hear the Central Security Control's trying to get a hold of you, Jim? I says, no, I didn't hear it. And we had a direct line in there to CSC, Central Security Control. And that was over on Bentwaters. And I went to the direct line. It was Sergeant Coffey, the senior controller, and he says, Jim, you need to get out to the East Gate right away. I said, okay. I said, what's going on? He said, well, the 2 law enforcement patrols, they'll brief you when you get there. But he says, run code 2, but stay off the radio. And code 2 for us was lights only. And I said, okay, so it's about a 4-minute drive at 45 miles an hour over there, and that's about what it took me. And when I arrived, Staff Sergeant Steffens, he's a senior law enforcement patrolman. I said, what's going on, Bud? That's his first name, by the way, Bud. And he just sort of pointed over into the Rendlesham Forest area, which was, uninhabited area pretty much off from the perimeter of the base. And I could see over there where the Rendlesham was, the forest, there was a light bubble above the top of the forest. And inside the forest, you see multiple color lights. So my first thought was, it might be an aircraft crash. The forest itself only had trees that were 4 or 5 feet apart, so there's nothing that could land in it. And I said, did you hear it crash? And he goes, it didn't crash. He said, it landed. And I said, it wasn't really, I wasn't really taking that in because it's impossible for anything to land in there. I said, no, you mean it crashed? He goes, no, it landed. I said, okay. So I went to the direct line at the East Gate, and I had law enforcement pass me through to Central Security Control. And when you do that, at the control center, you have like 5 people instantaneously on the line. I had like the senior controller, the comm plotter, the flight sergeant for Bentwaters, the shift commander. I mean, there's a lot of people on the line. And I says, we have a situation. I says, off the perimeter of the East Gate here. I says, it appears to be, I would say, a aircraft crash. And they said, okay. They said, did you hear anything go down? I said, no. I said, I arrived. I just seen lights in the woods, and that's it. I said, I could hear nothing. I could smell nothing like fuel or anything like that burning. And just say maybe a minute or 2 went by, and Sergeant Coffey goes back online. What he was doing is checking with the London radar, Eastern radar, Bentwaters radar. And sure enough, there was a bogey on radar 15 minutes prior, and they lost contact with it over the Woodbridge base. So under the SOFA agreement, status of force agreement with the British, we can only deploy off base if we have an emergency situation. Therefore, with that information, we had an emergency situation. And the shift commander, in the meantime, had got a hold of the wing command post, who got a hold of the base commander, Colonel Conrad, and we got permission to go off. I took two patrolmen with me. I took a security person, and I took a law enforcement patrolman. And inside my Jeep, we had CJ5 Jeeps. In the back, I had a crash kit for off-base aircraft crashes. So we carried them with us all the time. And so I had started driving as far as I could through the forest that had been cut down. The British Forestry Service would cut the forest down like a crop. They do it every 10 years. So there was a lot of berms, earthen berms that I had to go over. And I went as far as I could, and I figured this is a good place to set up the entry control point, because at that point in time I was implementing the security response option for an off-base aircraft crash. And so I took the security airman, and I said, all right, I says, you'll be here, you'll be the entry controller. I says, for the responding first responders, stuff like that, fire department, mortuary, things like that. And I said, then you're going to have to work as a radio relay, because my radio was not receiving well the CSC's transmissions and stuff, which is unusual because we had a repeater system all over the base, all of the twin bases for our radio signals, so that should never happen. So myself and the law enforcement patrolman, after I established the entry control point, proceeded toward the edge of the forest where we could see all these multiple color lights in there. And as we got closer toward the tree line, the multiple color lights stopped, and it was more of a white, bright, bluish type light. Well, I've been to a lot of aircraft crashes, responded to them up to that point, and everything that was going on in front of me was not indicative of a aircraft crash. I didn't hear the sound of burning, like the forest itself burning from the fuel, or like aircraft that have titanium and stuff like that, their components, they give off a unique color when they do burn. Didn't have that. So as we proceeded to the tree line, I'm still using my security protocols, and I'm in contact with the entry controller at that I established, and he's relaying information to Sergeant Chandler. Sergeant Chandler was a flight chief from Bentwaters, and he had, since I was no longer on base, he had responded to the East Gate, and he set up an observation point at that area. Then, as we started to get moving toward this light that was halfway hidden behind a berm, earthen berm, we started noticing, physical effects. I had a crash camera with me for, to take pictures and stuff, so I was shooting the pictures as I went up. And anyway, the physical effects of it, I could feel like static electricity on my skin, my hair, my clothes. And also, I found out that my movements were somewhat labored, like, I guess a comparison or analogy would be like wading through a pool of water. That's how it felt labored. So I terminated called in, I terminated the possible aircraft crash. and I initiated a security response option for a helping hand situation. That's a security situation of a possible hostile threat, that could involve part A, B, C resources of the base. Because I knew right there it was definitely not no aircraft crash.
Right.
I wasn't really sure. It could have been a ruse, it could have been something just to get our attention. We didn't want to have too many people respond. I had, these are the things that are going through my head. You got a question?
No, actually, I do. I don't want to stop you, but
Yeah, stop me anytime.
all right, some of the physical things you were going through, and I've heard this on other reports, and I've kind of been wanting to ask you this, but did you happen to smell anything odd, or did you notice like a taste, like maybe like sticking a 9-volt battery to your tongue, any kind of ionization stuff going on?
The smell was, I would say, have you ever smelt the metal that's been heated up like a jet engine that's been heated up? the smell that you get from after a run up. I don't know if you remember.
I haven't.
Okay, it's a smell of hot metal. Okay.
Okay.
And I don't know. It's not like on a car or something like that. It's completely different. It's a unique smell, but it's associated with aircraft. That's the only smell that was apparent. The other oddity, as far as physical things, is that I'm like 10 or 15 feet from this berm. And that's how close I was at that point. And then there's like this big flash of light. And out of reaction, myself and the other airmen, we hit the ground because we thought it was an explosion, but there's no sound. And, I get up and I brush myself off and I go, oh, what happened there, And so as I approached the craft, or the light at that point in time, there was like a area around this light, maybe stretched out about 15 feet, and I was in that area. And that's where these physical effects were really intense. But as I came up to go over the berm to get a look at this, whatever it was, I could feel that the labored movements were less. There was absolutely no sound, by the way. Like in a forest, you'd hear your feet crunching on debris on the forest floor. Nothing like that. It was just complete silence. There wasn't air going through the trees. Nothing like that. So as I go on over, as I go over to the berm, I'm looking over it, and I'm looking around, and all I could see around me is this white light. It's like I'm inside this bubble. And because that forest is pitch black. It's dark. And at this point in time, I still am not using my flashlight. I have that much light. And when I came over and I seen the light started to dissipate, getting dimmer. And as it got dimmer, that's when I seen a structural craft. And the craft was had like globular type lights running through the fabric or the skin of the craft. And they were going at a good pace, and they were random. And they started to slow down. And so now all I can see is the appearance of a black structured craft, triangular. I'm out of film. And I see the airman on the outside of this wall of light, and he's just standing there. I don't know if he's scared to death or whatever, but I refocused back on what was going on in front of me. And so I wasn't sure if if I was going to survive or not the situation, because I didn't know it was hostile or not, or benign. I didn't know at that point in time. So I figured I'd go ahead and write down as much information, do the best investigation I can. In the event that I don't survive it, then the command authorities there at the base, they can actually have information. They can determine stuff later on. So anyway, I didn't have anything to measure this craft with, so I just had to use what I had, and that's myself. My stride is about 3 feet, so it took 3 large steps, so that's about 9 feet long. And I'm about 6'2", so the craft looked like it might have been 6.5 at the highest point of the dorsal that was sticking up. There's still some light coming out of the bottom of the craft, white light. So I'm looking underneath it, and there's absolutely no landing struts. But it's fixed to the floor of the forest somehow. And so, I gave it a push to see if it would move,
Mm-hmm.
and I was expecting it to move actually, and it was solid. I mean, even if you had an automobile out there in the forest and you went up to it and you pushed it, it would move some, a little bit. It would have, inch, half inch, something. But this did not move. So that was there was something with the technology. I don't know what kind of technology it is, but it appears to be light to me, but it can't be light, but it's holding this craft in place.
Right.
So I started to go ahead and pace it off. It was, 9 feet, and it was equal on 2 sides, and I'm going to the third side, and I see inscription on the side of it. And I said, wow, that's good. That's good news. It is. It's good news because at that point in time, I'm looking for, it could be anything. It could have been, like a Russian or, Soviet one with sickle on, or NASA or Air Force or anything, prototype. I don't know. It could have been anything on the side, and I would have been pretty relieved. And as I got closer, I seen that they weren't writing as such. It was like some type of pictures and things like that, like a petrograph of some kind. So I just kept walking, ignoring it. I went back around to the 360, writing down more notes, and of course I come back around and I'm feeling the craft, and it's warm to touch. The air temperature that night, found out later, was 33, 34 degrees, something like that. And the touching this, it was warm to touch. So my guess would be it would have been more like 50 degrees, something like that. So it was completely smooth, the texture of the craft. As I did those 360s, I was looking for, obvious things that airplanes or aircraft need to fly. I was looking for, like flaps. I was looking for intakes. I was looking for exhaust, crew compartment, areas, anything like that. It was void of it. Didn't have anything like that.
Was it seamless? I mean, were there any seams?
Yeah.
Wow.
No, it was seamless. It was just like if I could, it would be like black glass. Okay, I mean it's not glass. I mean it felt like metal of some kind, but it was completely smooth to touch. So as I went around there and I come to the symbols. They stretched out about 3 feet on the bottom. And there's like the 5 symbols, and there's another symbol on top, which is a triangular one. And so it was going like from touching it from like smooth glass to when I touched, the glyphs itself, they felt like maybe going from smooth glass to like sandpaper. So
Okay.
They felt like they're etched in the craft.
Wow.
Yeah. Believe me, it was.
And
yeah.
And it's something I hate to interrupt you because I'm holding on to every word. I may not even say anything. I just want to hear it. But you may know this already, but just checking around, that craft that you encountered and touched is not the only one that actually had like similar petroglyph or hieroglyph type symbols. There have been other reports. I mean, like big high profile cases. Like the one I'm thinking of is I think the Lonnie Zamora, it may have been in New Mexico in '64. He also noted hieroglyph type symbols on the outside. There was 1965 in Kecksburg, PA. Like this acorn-shaped craft, which is another whole story. But even the townsfolk there also reported seeing hieroglyphic type symbols on the thing. So it's kind of odd that you brought that up.
Well, I don't know anything about the Zamora case, but I don't follow ufology. But we were doing a film shoot. I don't know. I can't remember. 2005 or something like that. And we went to Kecksburg. I don't want to ruin the documentary, but we had filmed in the shoot in England. But then we finished up the shoot in Kecksburg because they were going to do another show about Kecksburg. And so I got the opportunity to talk to some of the witnesses while I was there. So that was pretty interesting too. But none of them ever mentioned anything about a glyphs or anything like that. But I didn't talk to everybody. You know what I mean?
Right.
So yeah, I was just like a couple area residents and stuff. So I am sort of familiar with that. Yeah, I don't know if the glyphs are the same. I don't know anything about that, but these here were definitely not something that I would normally see. Up to see my assignment prior to about 4 or 5 years prior to coming to Bentwaters. I worked special duty at Omaha, Nebraska, off of Air Force Base. I was with the SAC Elite Guard, and what we were was bodyguards for the generals and the protection of the SAC command post, stuff like that. And in there, we had an opportunity to be at a lot of classified, briefings and that for security. And, so they would go over research and development and prototypes and all that stuff. And there was nothing, absolutely nothing that was projected out 50 years that even resembled what was being observed by me at that time. So that made it even more, made it more unique.
Right.
Then as I think it might have been a second time around or third time. I was walking around craft. The craft was on the ground 45 minutes total. And the reason I know that, well, first of all, the control center, I found this out later. I didn't even know I was transmitting on the radio. I couldn't receive, but they heard everything. So that helped with the time frames and stuff. Also, one of the other things, I had an electronic watch. I don't know if you remember those back in 1980. There were the electronic ones. They were brand new. And anyway, that stopped working for 45 minutes. I'm thinking it's because of maybe the, I felt that static electricity and all that stuff. So maybe it was something to do with that.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to rationalize. That's all this stuff that's going through my head, rationalizing everything, even afterwards, trying to rationalize it. Then I come back around, and I'm fascinated by the glyphs. Since you brought them up, I was fascinated at the time about them. And then the one above it was a larger one, and that's with the triangle with the circle and the 3 other circles in it. And so, I touched it. And when I did that, I had a blinding white light where I couldn't see at all. I mean, that's all I could see was intense white light. I would say it's like, I don't know if you remember the old flash bulbs. It was like a constant flash bulb. It was very strong.
Oh, yeah.
And, yeah. And I don't know how long I had my hand on there, but it wasn't long. And I just sort of gained my senses back. I just lifted my hand off and it stopped immediately. Now, it wasn't light, per se, because I had full night vision. And anything that would have been that bright, if it was light, I wouldn't have had my night vision. I mean, I don't know. I would have took a half hour, 40 minutes to regain that.
Oh yeah, that's a good point actually, because if you're out there and you're your eyes have adjusted. Any like a candle light can ruin your night vision for the next 30, 40 minutes.
Yeah, it would be completely hindered at that point in time. You wouldn't be able to see nothing. All you'd be probably one big blue dot would be
Right.
probably the only thing you could see. But it's so whatever the technology was that appeared to be light wasn't light, obviously. And it's that time, I had a lot of flashing going on, and there was some type of experience with like ones and zeros and things like that. It was really crazy. And so I took my hand off that, and once I did that, I never touched it again because I was concerned that there was a reaction. And so I had got back around the other side of the craft, and then I started to see these colors come back into the fabric of the craft again, and they started moving around. And so it was starting to get active. So I backed away, and I got back down in the prone position, maybe 10, 15 feet away. And then it started to have a bright light emanating from it again. And then what it did is sort of lift up off the forest floor. Now remember, I told you that this forest, the trees are like 4 to 5 feet apart.
Right.
Okay. It moved up and then moved back to the trees, and maybe went back maybe 10, 15 feet, and then it lifted up to the canopy of the forest, to the top of the trees, made a slight right turn, and it was gone that fast. And and immediately after that, I heard some branches break around me to the side, and it was the airman. I rode off. I thought he was, I don't know. I rode him off, and he was pretty excited. He was agitated and excited, and he said he reacquired it at a distance, which I don't know how you do that. It was pretty thick, that forest. And anyway, he took off. And I don't know if you have a military experience or not, but one thing you don't do with your team member is leave your team member. You stay together.
Right.
Yeah, so I take off after him. And we maybe went in 40 or 50 more feet, maybe 60 feet, I don't really know. And we come to a double fence. There's a barbed wire fence, and then another fence right behind it, and it went into a farmer's field. And so I pursued him right behind him through his farmer's field. I fell down a few times. There was like frozen water on the field, and you break through the ice. It's not very thick. And anyway, we get down past these farmers' houses, and we get across the road, and he finally stops. And I catch up with him, and I was like, gosh, what are you chasing? I still don't see no other lights. And he points over in an opposite direction toward the coastline. And I said, what are you chasing? And he puts his arm out, and he says, look down my arm. So I look down his arm, and off on the coast, maybe 4 miles away, maybe 5, there was a dim light on the horizon that would flash every 5 or 6 seconds. It was the lighthouse for Orphan Nest Lighthouse. I said, that's the lighthouse. I said, that's a lighthouse. And I'm getting ready to probably say things to him that weren't going to be too good. And anyway, I see a light over the Capel Green area of the Rendlesham Forest area, and it appears to be that craft again. So I'm getting ready to react again. And I started calling in, and before I could do any more reaction to it, it just took off over toward the North Sea, which is only a few miles away. So with that gone, I started receiving radio signals from security control, and I answered them, and they said, they said, well, you need to come on back to Eastgate and meet up back up with Sergeant Chandler. So I headed on back with the airman, and we got to the east gate. He was taken back to Central Security Control to turn his weapon and stuff in. By law enforcement patrol, they go through the main gate, the front area, and the security guys, we have a shortcut through the back area, and I went with them. I finished up my notes in the van, and of course I had my off-going flight with me, my guys I worked with. I get to Central Security Control, and I meet Sergeant Chandler, who had been at the East Gate, and I says, Sergeant Chandler, so you won't believe tonight. He said, I've seen everything. He said, I was at the East Gate. So I never even knew he was there. I never heard him. And so I went in to do a 1569. We have a blotter entry, which is, as things really happen, it's chronological order. And but anything that would be a security situation like this, 1569 is an incident complaint report. It's usually a couple paragraphs, 2 or 3, long written narrative of exactly what happened. So he says, go into CSC, see Sergeant Coffey, go ahead and write that out. I said, no problem. So I have my notes in the notebook for that. And when I get in to see Sergeant Coffey, that's when I found out he heard, all the transmissions. I didn't know. I said, you heard of everything? He said, yeah, I got the times and everything. He said, I got the 1569 done for you. I said, you do? Yeah. I said, read it over. So I read it over, and it was, all the times were correct and everything. And I said, thanks a lot, Sergeant Coffey. I appreciate it. And he said, well, the shift commander wants to see you, the day shift commander. So this is after I turned my weapon in and stuff like that. And so I go outside and I see the law enforcement airman, and I said, you come with me. I said, you don't talk, I'll do talking. And he said, no problem. So we get in front of Captain Verano, the day flight commander, and he wanted to know what happened. I kept it a sanitized version of it. I kept it pretty basic, a mechanical craft, within 50 feet, blah, blah, blah. And he just sat there for a while, and he was taking his pen and hitting on the desk and slowly tapping it. And he says, gentlemen, he says, Project Blue Book ended, he says, quite a while ago, 1969. He says, there's no way to report this. And he says, I don't know if it's a good idea if we did. And I'm agreeing, I'm nodding, I'm agreeing with it, because I think this should end right now. And because this is at that time, the last thing anybody in the Air Force would do, or a pilot or anything like that, is report a UFO. You just don't do that. So I never used the term UFO. Even in the report, I used the term craft of unknown origin, which was accurate, but it didn't have the connotations that you hear with UFO. And so that was the initial day. We did go back out there. We did go out and check it out. We did run into the rest of the security people that were checking it out. Anyway, then this is in our new book anyway. Sergeant Neville, he's the disaster preparedness NCO. They're the people, that have all the equipment for radiation and stuff like that. Anyway, he was ordered out there, according to him and Colonel Conrad, the base commander, was ordered out there by Colonel Conrad later that day to investigate the landing site, takeoff site, and to get, more information on it. And he did do that. And he did come back in, and I think he was out there all day, pretty much. And he went back to the Woodbridge Officers Club. That's where Colonel Conrad was. It was later at night, 8 o'clock at night or something like that. And they were having some type of party, the officers. And anyway, Colonel Conrad says, you think this needs more investigation? And Sergeant Neville says yes. And he said, well, I'll take out the radiation equipment and such. And that's when Colonel Hall, the deputy base commander who was there, went with Sergeant Nevels. And then they had a whole bunch of observations of UAPs, unidentified aerial phenomena, which included, I guess, according to them, lights being shot down or lasers or something like that. So that's the real brevity of telling the Rendlesham Forest incident. I mean, I left a lot of things out.
Oh, of course.
But that's, yeah.
No, I was going to say, I mean, it's a huge, very detailed account, and I encourage everyone to really look into this. I know the account for the most part, and I know you have a couple of books out, Encounter in Rendlesham Forest, and your latest.
Well, the Encounter book, don't read it. It's half right. Okay.
Okay.
I'm just going to tell you, don't read it. It's so many mistakes in it. It took us 4.5 years to write this other book because first I had to go through that book. It was just terrible. This is nothing against Nick Pope. Okay.
Right.
Nick and Pope. Matter of fact, Nick says what happened is I had 80 pages that didn't go in there. My co-author, who's my research team leader at the time, he had 50 pages that didn't go in there, and so Nick says, you know what you need to do? He says you need to write your own book and be as detailed as you want on it, and that's what we did. It took 4.5 years to write it, and we didn't leave nothing out. It's definitive on the Rendlesham Forest case. Matter of fact, when I do a conference or anything, I ask people, I said, how many people know about the Rendlesham Forest incident? Of course, they're all there for that. And they all raise their hands. And I said, okay, half of what you know is not true. Because of the disinformation. And, some of this is not, this is not against the witnesses. This is against... like documentaries, they have their own agenda, and believe me, it has nothing to do with truth. It has to do with them making money, and right. Things like that. And then you also have, from your background, you know how eyewitnesses are. There's slightly different, observations by them. I mean, I have them different with the guys I was with a little bit, and even Colonel Hall and Sergeant Nevels, they have a little bit different too.
Sure.
But, it's 90% of it's the same. It hasn't changed. But, as far as, this is one of our motivations to write this book. And this book is 702 pages. Of that 702 pages, 300 pages are endnotes. And what we did with those endnotes, we gave direct testimony, whatever we're saying in the book, direct testimony by other witnesses or evidence. We put that in there too. Sometimes 5 and 7 levels deep. And the purpose behind that is we wanted to have the reader have all the information available to them, exactly what happened, when it happened, and how it happened. And then after they read the book, they can go ahead and make their own decisions on it. This book wasn't written to convince anybody. This book was written to inform. And then they can make their own decisions. So,
right.
Yes,
and it's
yes.
it's like you and I talked about the other day. It's building a case. If you're a juror in a courtroom, you want to know all the facts, all the cases, the timelines, everything. And that's what this does, is just builds a case.
Yeah, and the timeline is actually is 100% accurate now, and it's pretty simple. What we did when we were writing the book, and it took a lot of work, but we simply followed the evidence. That's what we did. If somebody wasn't in the book, it's because we couldn't verify what they were saying. Okay. Mm-hmm. For example, Sergeant Nevels, his stuff was verified by Colonel Hall, and it was verified by Colonel Conrad. I mean, we had, so it goes like that. And as you know, following the evidence is the only way to investigate anything. You got to go ahead and leave all your biases, your beliefs, and you put them aside. and that was pretty hard for me considering what I went through. But I had my co-author to keep me on track.
Right. Wow.
Mhm.
Well, that it's amazing, and like I said, I hated to interrupt you. I've had questions about it, but I hated to interrupt you.
Ask your questions.
No,
Ask
no,
your questions.
I kind of did. I just had a few, but I hated to butt in because I was hanging on to every word. This is an honor for me to have you on and you actually telling me your
Well,
story firsthand.
that's nice for you to say that, Paul. But the Rendlesham Forest incident is not about any individual. It's not about me, or it's not about the other witnesses. It's about what happened out there and this code that was given on it. Just to briefly talk about this code, this binary that I had written down in my notebook. This gives out coordinates around the world. We only found this out in the last few years. And anyway, they're so precise, they're down to the inch globally, so they're pretty precise. But inside this code within a code is a fine structure constant. And this is one of the things that Gary Osborne discovered. This fine structure constant is something all scientists says needs to be happen if there ever is a message. Matter of fact, Carl Sagan said back in the 70s, I guess, he said, if there ever is a message by higher intelligence, it would be a fine structure constant, and it would be 7 digits over. We commonly are in 6 digits ourselves right now with codes and the binary and the digits.
Mm-hmm.
But 7 would be a higher intelligence. Now, in the discovery that Gary did from 1980, the fine structure constant moves it over 14 places.
Wow.
So this is a higher intelligence, but probably a higher intelligence that we probably couldn't recognize if we did see it. You know what I mean?
Right. And I didn't want to I wanted to ask you about that, but I know a lot of that is in the new book, and I didn't want to bring that up if you didn't want to. But yeah, there's some amazing stuff that is coming to light or fruition just by what you observed and touched in the code, uploaded to you basically.
Yeah, I have. Have you had a chance to read the Rendlesham Enigma book, or?
No, I have not. I'm terrible. I have it ordered.
I'll tell you what. I'll guarantee you this. I'll guarantee you in chapters 3 and 4. That night I was out there pretty much alone. Okay, I was on myself. I was the only one making decisions, running my checklist and all this other stuff. But after you reach chapter 3 and 4, hopefully you as the reader will be standing right next to me as I go through every bit of this.
Okay. Yeah, that's awesome.
I would like to have your feedback on it. You message me or call me, whatever you want to do. And I'd like to know what your thoughts are afterwards.
Yeah, well, it should have been here by now. Amazon's moving a little slow.
Yeah, I know. What happened is I went and got my author's copies, all ordered back in late July, and everybody was like on Facebook and that were coming up and said they had their copies. And I'm like, where's my copy? I haven't got my copy yet. I said, what's the deal? So it Amazon does have does get a little sluggish sometimes. So, but yeah.
Yep.
But that's pretty much everything. I'm looking. If you have some questions, I'll take them right now. You did have some that you asked before, and let's see. One of them was you asked me is my belief system before I went into the forest that night.
Right.
I believe that's what you asked. No, I didn't believe in UFOs. I didn't believe in that kind of science fiction stuff. But I'll tell you this, when I left the forest that night, I had a completely different viewpoint on it. So.
Yeah, I bet. And without you, well, I mean, I can probably ask this. I mean, and
I don't know where I stand with it because I've talked to a lot of people, and I am into ufology, and I've researched it for a long time. So, but you have a different viewpoint or knowledge of these things aren't just otherworldly or off-world.
No,
And it's
our evidence. No, our evidence is showing that we have a working theory on it because some of the stuff to support it, we think that they are actually interdimensional travelers. I mean, time travelers, us, future. And the reason we believe that, first of all, let's just go back to the craft. It was a triangular craft. It or now today, I mean, we have drones like that and all that kind of stuff. It's pretty common. But why would it be a triangular craft? Why would it have inscription on it? Why would the aircraft or the craft itself be marked? I mean, that's stuff we do, human beings.
right.
We do that. The other thing is the binary was in English.
Right.
Why would it be in English? I mean, these are all these types of questions to that. Of course, I also, when I got retired from the Air Force, just like 10 years after the incident, when I got out, I was having problems sleeping and stuff like that. This was like 93. And I just was getting like a couple hours of sleep a night. And I was doing a similar job that you were doing. Okay, so you can't get by with 2 hours sleep a night. I mean, it just doesn't work.
Right.
And so I went to my medical doctor about it, and I said, I have a sleep problem. I can't sleep. She says, well, she messed around for like 3 or 4 weeks with me, and she says, I can't do nothing. She says, are you open to see a psychiatrist? And I go, hey, I'm open to anything right now. I said, I can't sleep. I said, I can't stay focused during the daytime. And so she set up a referral with a psychiatrist, and I went with her for probably 3-4 visits. And interesting, she says, I think there's something in your past, maybe as a child or something like that has caused trauma, and I would like to do a hypnosis on you, and we can find out what it is, so we work the problem. And I'm thinking, oh my God, was something happened to me when I was a kid? Maybe I was abused. I was like, oh my God, I said, well, anything over, I'll go along with it. So we did 2 taped interviews. So what she did is she taped her notes, and this is before the time when people worried about getting sued. So she gave me her notes, so I have the tapes. And so the first taping was 2 hours, and we get all done with the hypnosis, and I feel great. I don't know what she suggested or whatever. I felt really good afterwards. But she's sitting in front of me, and she's got her jaw down on the table. I said, what's the matter? She says, we're going to have to do this a little bit more. She says, we're going to have to talk about Woodbridge. I went, oh, no. And so we did in our session. But what we did is these tape sessions, which I never did listen to, my co-author, Gary, finally got me to, what he did was transcribe them last year, and he read them to me. We did, I don't know how many hundreds of Skype calls. He actually read them to me, and so I got to hear what was in the hypnosis for the first time. So what we did is all the stuff that's in the hypnosis, well, I say most of it, has been true. So we put that in the book, and we say it's from the hypnosis. We don't say it's from memory. And but there's a lot of detail in there and of things that are going on. But let me go back to with you as an investigator. I think to be a good investigator with this stuff, you need to be a really good skeptic too.
Sure.
Okay. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And if I was you, if I was in your position listening to me, I'd be asking hard questions, and I don't know if I'd actually believe it. The only reason I believe it, because it happened to me, but I was there.
Right.
But I would have a lot of difficulty if someone's telling me this county. So that's how I approached the writing of the Rendlesham Enigma. And I says, as a skeptic, not being myself, not being out there, what would I want to see as proof and stuff to support what I'm saying? And that's how we started writing the book, Gary and I.
Yeah, and that's very smart. I mean, that's really the way I would have done it, because I mean, I get a lot of calls, I get a lot of emails that I don't actually put on here. I mean, I'm familiar with your story, and as it also being very well documented. So, you know, I'm on your side of it, but there's a lot, you know, that I have to question. And, you know,
Absolutely.
there's, you know, anytime I go into anything, and I've been on several, you know, quote, paranormal investigations, cryptid activity investigations. I go in there not believing a thing, what I've just been told, because, I mean, I'm trying to look for the most plausible, most, you know, most in-your-face answer that I can. And if I can eliminate all of that, then maybe we've had some kind of, you know, unnormal encounter or experience. But no, I enjoy trying to pick it apart, debunk everything that I can. You know, trip up witnesses. It's you know, it's just it's kind of fun to me to get in there and work this thing out. But
but you need to do that, Paul, because there is so much, you know, disinformation out there. People making stuff up and all kinds of stuff. I mean, you have to do that. And I'll tell you something. I don't know if you're familiar with James Fox.
Oh yes.
He's a filmmaker, and I've worked with him. But we did this one project. I Know What I Saw.
Right.
And we went out to Washington D.C. and I got to sit with 14 other people that were from around the world, pilots, you know, and heads of different associations and stuff. Anyway, some of these cases, matter of fact, that he had in there, those 14 other people, I mean, are foolproof too. And like General Jafari in the Iranian encounter, and you know, and the Belgian wave, and there's another one from South America. These are ones that, you know, we're sitting around for 2 weeks doing this film shoot, and I'm with these other witnesses, definitely outranked because most of them were general officers, but I was fascinated by it because their accounting was so absolute and so detailed. And we also had some really interesting things like General Safari stuff. I mean, he had the nose cam footage of this UAP that he actually fired on. I mean, and believe me, it wasn't lights in the sky or the stuff you see with the TSA stuff or the TTSA. Okay, it's not that stuff. This stuff is clear imaging. Okay,
right.
It's not. Yeah, I mean, it's so there's a lot of cases out there. Matter of fact, I call it the 1% factor. 99% of all ufology stuff is bunk. It's easily explainable. It's by natural or man-made phenomena. You know,
right.
It's explainable. But that 1%, and people get all tight at me. 1%, that's it. I thought a big number. I says, you know, that equates to like 5,000 sightings worldwide a year. That's a lot.
Yeah.
You know, I said it's just that you got to ask these tough questions with them, and I'm okay with that. And even if I'm at a conference, the Q&A is what I look forward to, and I have three answers: either I know the answer, I don't know the answer, or I'd like to know the answer. You know, that's usually the way I answer it. I'd like to know the answer to that. You know.
Yeah, and that's like a telltale sign. I mean, if you're not afraid to be up there and answer any question they throw at you, there's validity in that. And you know, it's just kind of I want to back up. So I got to meet James Fox. So you're a fan, I guess, basically of his.
He's a friend of mine.
Yeah, no, he's. I met him. You know, just real quick. I was flown out to L.A. several years ago, and I was almost on a show, I guess, with him and a couple of other investigators, and they were looking for, you know, former law enforcement with some knowledge of this, and I just kind of fit the bill. So I was flown out there, and I met James, and I met the other guys, and we kind of talked and had a little roundtable discussion, did a little screen test, but you know, I saw his documentary. I've been following him for years. he was, and I'm not going to say the production company, he was the most real guy there. And he was, I mean, he was all about the science of it, the business, getting to the bottom of it, and I could tell some of it was just going to be highly produced. And, they were just trying to make a TV show. And, ultimately that TV show only ran maybe one season or half a season. And it was, and you may know this already, but it was because, he was trying to keep it on the level and serious. And I so appreciated that. And I hate that I didn't get to be a part of it, but no, I've always had the utmost respect for James Fox. I love his stuff.
Yeah, and I tell you, we communicate all the time, James and I do. Well, probably not as much as we used to, though. Quite a bit. Matter of fact, he sent me. You're able to go ahead and set up parts of his new film, Phenomena. He would send me like clips and that only you could view for like 12 hours. And you had to have a passcode to watch them. And so I got to see some of the stuff that's in Phenomenon, his new movie, and good stuff. I'm gonna tell you, just based on the clips I've seen so far, this is his best work yet. And I tell you what, you will get that fresh, honest approach that James Fox can only do, and that's what I like about him. And he's a great film producer and stuff like that. But he's also just a great guy. He's honest and he's a decent guy. He's fun to be around too. So
yeah, he seemed to be, and I can't wait because I know what I saw really up the bar to me is years ago as far as every other documentary out there. I was like, this really opened my eyes. I mean, it was well done, and I loved it. I've seen it 4 or 5 times, if not more than that. If it's on, I stop and watch it.
Yeah, you know what you should do? You should probably try to get, I can put you in contact. If he's a busy guy right now with his film coming out, but I'm sure James will, do a show with you or something like that. He's fascinating to listen to. So,
oh, absolutely.
If you want to get, recontact with him if you need that, I'm sure he would do something with you.
Well, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, because you know what, he likes the people with the law enforcement background, and it's because they're looking for facts. That's why. I mean, it's not the woo-woo stuff. You know what I mean? It's actually looking at facts and following the evidence, and that's the way James is. He's always been like that. I've had the privilege of knowing him for, oh my God, I don't know, 15, 20 years, something like that.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. So we're doing a nice promotion for James Fox's new film, Phenomena.
Yeah, it's going to be called it.
But I'm telling you, I don't watch that kind of stuff, but I watch James Fox stuff, okay? Because exactly what you just said. He's a genuine person that tries to be as honest as he can, and and it's all about the facts. So, and in the process also entertaining. So, so I'm looking forward to the release of that film.
Yeah, I am too. I'll definitely keep my eyes open. And I know you and I could probably talk 2 or 3 more hours about this stuff. And
yes.
And I did want to bring up one thing. And you said you don't really follow some of the events or the ufology stuff, but were you aware that just days after you guys' encounter over there, around December 28th, 29th, something like that, 1980, just outside of Houston, there was something called the Cash Landrum incident. Have you ever heard of that?
Yes, and I heard of that from James Fox.
Okay.
That's what I heard from him. Yeah.
Okay.
And I don't know nothing about the case really, but I just know it happened. There's another event that happened around the same time from at Kirtland Air Force Base too. That is
Yep.
fascinating, and I don't think that. I think that requires further to be looked at, because I think there's something there. And
Well, yeah.
but yeah, I don't say. What I'm saying about ufology, I go to a conference and I just sort of I go off by myself someplace, because I don't know. They just seem like, I don't know. They all seem like entertainers, you know what
Right.
I mean? Yeah. I mean, there's people that you know, when I run into another witness, you know, an event, that's different. When I talk to them, it's completely different. I tell you what, I've been you know, like, corresponding with Travis Walton, I think, for 20 years. I can't really know, a long time. And you know, for advice or stuff like that on certain things. But I finally got to meet him at the 50th symposium in Los Angeles at the end of July, and it was the first time I got to meet him. And I wanted to spend more time talking. But when I hear about I'm not talking about the witnesses per se for these conferences, like the UFO opportunists and entertainers that do the lecture circuit. I'm not talking about the witnesses. I'm talking about the people that make a living out of this stuff.
Right.
Yeah, it's you know, yeah. Are they researchers? Well, I think you and I know a researcher does boots in the ground. They don't do it from a computer.
Right.
Right.
And yeah, to add to Travis, I was fortunate enough to be invited last November to like a little intimate evening with just a few friends here in Tennessee. I know the state MUFON director. Great person, Angelia Shear. She invited me over because Travis was going to be there, along with another experiencer, I guess, or abductee, but Deb Caudle. But we sat around and got to hang out with Travis all night. Super.
Yeah.
Another great.
Yeah. Well, he's a nice guy, but you know, also you get to see, you know, just how genuine he is.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? And I'll tell you what, as an investigator yourself, you can you know, you get the yellow flags and red flags. If someone's not telling you the truth, you're gonna know it.
No, he was solid as they come. I mean, and I like to be there. I mean, I've developed a little bit of a BS meter over the years being a cop, but not only that, but just he was so real, so genuine, not just trying to put himself out there. It's just he's just so matter of fact about everything. And by the end of the night, we were all sitting on the around the couch playing guitar. He was singing. I didn't know he could play guitar. He was singing country song. He loves country music. And I was like, well, you're in Nashville, so
that's good.
We had
you know.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, that's nice that you had the opportunity to do that. And you know, you see people as they really are. You know, not in a documentary or something like that. You know, yeah.
Right, and I don't mean to keep taking it up, but I brought up this Cash Landrum incident just to say that, I mean, I like to deal with people almost that I either know or have some kind of connection with it, because it makes it, you know, it kind of, like I said, I'm still researching, I'm still building my own, conclusions, right? So I know this took place outside of Houston years ago, like I said, a few days after you guys, 1980. Two women and their grandson, one of the grandsons, they were heading home. It's about 9 p.m. at night on an isolated 2-lane road. I mean, just outside of Houston. And they saw this, or they came upon this diamond-shaped craft in the sky that was almost like spewing lights or sparks or something out of the bottom of it. They get out, they look at it, and long story short, they are exposed to intense radiation just in a matter of minutes. The car was hot to touch. They got back in. One of them left a handprint on the actual dash of the car. They observed, like, I don't know how many, maybe 20 to 30, I'm not sure, Chinook helicopters coming over and escort this thing away, basically. So who knows? I'm sure probably something to do military, obviously. But I said all that to say they went to an ER, and they wound up seeing a doctor there who moved to the town where I was policing at for years, Dr. Brian McClellan. So it's kind of turned into a small world. Became my doctor and a lot of the other officers' doctors in the town. He's a great guy, great GP. I just didn't want to, but I had to ask him about it. But this is years ago. He said, yes, I attended to these ladies, and one of them even followed me here to Alabama, and I continued treating her. But I don't know what they were exposed to, but I can tell you that it was super high amounts of radiation, like in an instant. It was like way above anything they should have been even close to. So, I mean,
Right.
hearing that from him, a professional,
Mm-hmm.
and just, hearing it personally, through word of mouth right there. I mean, something happened.
Yeah,
And
exactly. I know exactly what you mean. It's just like when Merle Neville's, and he's in Texas, by the way, so, and we talk all the time. We're actually good friends now, and but Monroe, he was originally sent out there. The radiation for the incident in the book, I think we wrote down it was 10 times the amount of background.
yeah,
And the testing that Monroe says, "Oh, no." He says, "You got to do a change with the book." I said, "The change?" He goes, "Yeah." I said, "Okay." He says, "Yeah." He says, "Because our testing was 100 times more." I went, "Oh, that's a lot more than background radiation. That's a lot." And he says, and another thing, because the only place the radiation was where the craft landed, and the main part of the radiation was beta radiation. I guess the nasty stuff would be gamma.
okay.
Because, I don't know. It's all bad to me, It is. Well, that was the other thing. That's why that craft is warm to touch. We find out because of the radiation samples and that. It's because it was hot, not because it was temperature hot. It was hot, and I wish I'd known that, then.
Did you
But,
did you experience any adverse after effects?
absolutely not. I mean, I had I got sick like a few weeks later,
Right.
or something, but to say it's with the incident, I can't prove that. I don't even think I want to suggest it. And but I had difficulty maybe about 3 weeks later.
Okay.
With my balance and stuff like that. But to say it's from the incident, I doubt it. But I am the only one that was at the craft itself. The other airman was a good 25 feet away, outside of what I call the sphere of influence.
Right. Right.
Excuse me.
Well, that man. It's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know what to say.
Well, I tell you what I want you to do is I want you to ask a lot of hard questions. I want you to read that book, and then we should be able to, you call me or something like that. We can talk about it, and you can do it as an investigator, okay? And ask what you want to ask. I'm okay with that.
All right, you're on. You got it.
Okay.
Well, hopefully it'll be here in a few days. I hope. Yeah.
Well, you're a pretty busy guy. I think it would be if you could do a chapter a week. I think that'd be great.
Yeah. Yeah. I could probably handle that.
Yeah, I'm not a big book reader either, but there are, people say, have you read this UFO book or that? I said, no, I read Tom Clancy. I said, that's my favorite to read. But I know they don't get it. They don't. I don't know why.
Can I wait? Can I wait for the movie?
Yeah, wait for the movie. Yeah, I know.
Every time I come out, someone says, "Oh, the book was so much better." I'm like, that's not possible. But
or you get with somebody because you're like me and you go see the movie instead of read the book, and you always run into somebody. Oh, the movie's nothing. You should read the book. I don't know. Well, I thought the movie was pretty good.
Yeah, I'll say don't care. No, but no, I will check it out, and I will formulate it some questions, and I will get...
Yeah, and I'm going to try to get down there to Nashville next year and maybe do a conference or something like that. And hopefully I get to, meet you face to face, and you go ahead and get your list ready for questions.
I will. I'll be the annoying guy out in the audience, like, jumping up and down, raising my hand, grilling you. So.
Okay.
But,
yes,
but Jim, thank you again so much for coming on. And I know I would be remiss if I didn't say this, and I know you probably have heard this 1,000 times or more, but I have to tell you, you've got an incredible resume with our military, and thank you so much for your service. And I know you've probably heard that, and some guys don't care to hear it over and over again, but I really mean it.
Well,
thank you so much for what you've done for this country.
Well, thanks very much. Till the next time. How's that?
That sounds good, man. Take care, and if you need anything from me down here out of this great state of Tennessee, just let me know. You've got my information. And
thanks, Paul. I appreciate it.
And let me know when you come to Nashville. A lot of great food here, great barbecue, and we'll just sit around and talk shop.
I will do that.
I know you've heard.
I will do that.
I know you've heard of Nashville hot chicken. It's real, and it's real good. So.
That it is. Okay. No, I haven't been to Nashville. I was there like when I was a kid or something, but that was one of the reasons I wanted to do the show. When I found out that your show is because I said, I have never done anything in Tennessee, so this is a start. Okay.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad I was your first. Well, yeah. Just like I said, let's stay in touch, and we'll maybe we can bring James Fox in on the next time so we can praise him while he's here and listening.
Yeah. Or else maybe you guys arrange a screening down there with Phenomena or something like that.
Oh wow.
Yeah, because James, he's a really nice guy. I mean, he's open to a lot of things.
Right. Well, good. Well, all right. Thank you so much, Jim, and you take care, and we'll catch you soon.
Okay. Thanks a lot, Paul.
All right. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
And that's a wrap on this exciting episode of the Mysterious Huntsman podcast. Thanks so much to Jim again for coming on and telling us his encounter firsthand. And I hope you guys enjoyed it as much as I did. And remember, I would love to have you on the show. If you have an account of anything strange or you have seen something you just can't explain, please hit me up at mysteriousHuntsman@gmail.com or check out my Facebook page, Mysterious Huntsman. All right, guys, have a great week, and the guests are just going to keep getting better. So stay tuned.